Well, Rechsteiner's got quite a background as an amateur.
Scott Steiner gave wrestling fans some epic stories, but the one about Hogan's wife at the airport is where the legend gets darker than most people realize. Before we get there, you need to understand something real. Scott Steiner was not just a wild man playing a character. He was one of the most physically gifted athletes to ever step inside a wrestling ring. Born Scott Rechsteiner in Bay City, Michigan, he wrestled at Western High School in Auburn and earned a scholarship to the University of Michigan. Competing at 156 pounds, he became a three-time Big Ten runner-up and an NCAA Division One All-American in 1986, finishing 6th in the entire country. He trained under Dr. Jerry Graham Jr. and Ed the Sheik Farhat, and he brought every pound of that legitimate toughness into professional wrestling. His brother Rick was right there, a University of Michigan wrestler himself, and together they became one of the most decorated tag teams on the planet, multi-time WCW, WWF, and IWGP tag champions. Scott innovated the Frankensteiner, the Steiner Screwdriver, and was the first man to attempt a 450 splash in a major match. The talent was undeniable, but the reason you clicked on this video is that the talent was only part of the story. The other part is what Steiner did when the cameras were off, and that part is a lot harder to laugh at. These were not harmless locker room myths. Many of them show how dangerous and untouchable Steiner could be in an era where backstage rules were almost non-existent. The 90s WCW locker room was a wild west. Corporate control was weak. Physical fear shaped who got respect and who got hurt. The Steiner brothers were among the most feared figures in that environment. And as Scott shifted from clean-cut athlete into Big Papa Pump, the line between character and real danger blurred almost completely. Before we get into the wildest stories, subscribe if you remember when wrestling felt this lawless, and tell us in the comments whether you think the old locker room was tougher or just more reckless. Now, the story that brought you here. In 2015, during WrestleMania 31 weekend in San Jose, Steiner ran into Jennifer Hogan at the airport baggage claim. Hulk and Jennifer Hogan alleged that Steiner grabbed her and threatened to murder Hulk Hogan the moment he landed. Steiner denied touching her at all. He said he called Hogan insulting names and told her he would slap him, and he claimed the exchange was calm and low-key. Police reviewed the security footage and declined to prosecute, which supports his account. But even if every word of his version is true, confronting someone's wife at an airport over a wrestling booking decision is still reckless and embarrassing. Steiner was furious because WWE had chosen Hogan to induct Randy Savage into the Hall of Fame. He viewed it as disrespectful to Savage, knowing the real-life hostility between the two men. Hogan had Steiner banned from the ceremony and the arena. Most people would have backed down. Steiner publicly called Hogan a punk and doubled down. That tells you everything about how he operated. And the reason people believed the worst version of that airport story is because of what came before it. During WCW road trips, the Steiners played a highway game that had no business existing. They would drive rental cars beside vehicles carrying other wrestlers, names like Sting and Lex Luger, match speed. And then one brother would dangle completely out of the vehicle while the other held his legs, reaching across the gap to try to pull the other car's door open at full speed. Jim Cornette saw Rick Steiner at a convenience store in Amarillo, Texas, playing with a large handgun. A little later, he watched the Steiners' vehicle swerve near the highway embankment, and Rick leaned out and fired that gun into the open air while moving. On lighter road trips, Scott traveled with Diamond Dallas Page and Raven in the early 90s, and rigged a 13-inch TV and VHS player to DDP's dashboard so he and Raven could watch Roseanne while driving. Kevin Nash joked that DDP packed up to 57 duffel bags of juicing supplies for the trip. Years later in TNA, Petey Williams pointed Steiner toward a gym down a one-way street. Steiner blew through a red light and drove the wrong way without hesitating. He was not about to let traffic laws come between him and a workout. The backstage behavior was worse. In the 90s, locker room pranks often crossed into assault, and the Steiners were not shy about it. At a center stage television taping in Atlanta, they taped up Kevin Sullivan's young son and left the child crying until Mr. Hughes untied him. On a flight, they superglued Mr. Hughes' sunglasses to his face while he slept. On an international tour, a manager named Junior angered head shrinker Samu by taking his seat on a tour bus. Steiner and others taped Junior upside down in a bathroom stall and humiliated him. Kevin Nash recalled an incident where the brothers crossed a line with an enhancement wrestler that Nash warned them was felony behavior, and he left the room to protect himself from legal exposure. Eric Bischoff said his very first day in WCW, he walked in and saw the Steiners stretching and torturing a referee, wrapping him in gaff tape and leaving him stuck in a corner. This is where the funny old wrestling stories stop sounding funny. These were people using power because they knew they could get away with it. The one person they never targeted was Haku. Haku was widely seen as the most legitimately dangerous man in professional wrestling. Rick and Scott Steiner watched as Haku fought off approximately 8 police officers after being wrongfully detained. Haku inhaled chemical mace, snapped his handcuffs, and absorbed baton strikes without reacting. Rick said the brothers realized even they had met someone beyond their reach, so they respected Haku and left him alone. Steiner understood power. He just often failed to recognize when to stop using his own. The worst of it happened in 2000 with Diamond Dallas Page. Kimberly Page had reported drug paraphernalia found in the women's locker room, later linked to Tammy Sunny Sitch. Steiner believed Sitch had been unfairly targeted and decided to address it on live television. He broke script during WCW Monday Nitro and cut a personal promo attacking DDP and Kimberly. DDP waited for him backstage. When they came face to face, Steiner executed a double leg takedown and drove Page approximately 20 feet into the concrete. DDP caught a brief guillotine on the way down. Security and wrestlers rushed in. Steiner broke free, pinned DDP, and dug his fingers directly into DDP's eye socket. Witnesses Buff Bagwell and Lash LaRue confirmed Steiner was not punching. He was trying to tear the eye out. DDP curled into a fetal position and bit Steiner's arm to get free. DDP went to the hospital with severe lacerations around his eye and a permanent scar. Steiner later admitted he almost ripped it out before security grabbed his arm. WCW imposed no formal punishment. They eventually met with Eric Bischoff, made a truce, and reconciled. Something that's serious and almost no real consequence. Now here is the other side, because it matters. In 2003, Shane Helms was filling in for Bubba Ray Dudley during a WWE match with Steiner. They planned a top rope spot where Steiner would catch Helms mid-air. Helms lost his balance and started falling backward toward the steel steps. Steiner reacted instantly, caught him by the arm, said "Easy, kid," and pulled him safely back in. Helms credited Steiner with saving his life and said he could be one of the most careful and supportive performers in the locker room. In TNA, Steiner mentored Petey Williams, helped him build the Little Petey Pump character, and formed a genuine lifelong friendship with him. In 2002, when WWE asked Steiner to take a steroid test, he agreed only if Triple H, who had recently undergone a major physical transformation, took the test with him and picked him up in a limousine so they could go together. WWE dropped the request for both men. On October 23, 2000, Steiner walked a live adult Siberian tiger to the ring on WCW Nitro. The tiger was startled by fog and pyro. Backstage, Rey Mysterio was wearing zebra print overalls and crouched near the animal. The tiger lunged and nearly took his eye. The handler said if it had fully attacked, no one could have stopped it. Before TNA Sacrifice 2008, Steiner delivered the Steiner Math promo, claiming he had a 141 2/3% chance of winning a triple threat against Samoa Joe and Kurt Angle, while Joe had 8 1/3%. He said it with total conviction. Petey Williams and Samoa Joe said it took multiple takes because people kept laughing. Scott Steiner was brilliant, powerful, and unforgettable. An elite athlete, a tag team legend, a gifted performer, and sometimes a fierce protector of the people he respected. But the reason these stories still travel through wrestling is not only because they are funny, it is because they show what happens when a locker room lets fear and chaos become part of the job. Many of the stories that built his legend are warnings just as much as they are memories. Which one hit you hardest? The Hogan airport confrontation, the highway door handle stunt, the DDP fight, the Shane Helms save, the Tiger entrance, or Steiner Math? Drop it in the comments and subscribe for more wrestling stories that separate the legend from what really happened.